Hey, Dr. Robert Ballard. Hey, thanks so much for joining us on the show today.
My pleasure. Fire away.
We are talking because you're coming to the Weinberg Center here in my hometown of Frederick, Maryland. That's where you're speaking to us right now. We're right down the street from the Weinberg. It's going to be on Thursday, February 6th, and it kicks off the 12th season of the Frederick Speaker Series. Some really
Yeah,
cool.
they've had a bunch of superb lectures. So Colin Powell was a dear friend of mine for many years, and I'm nice to be in his company.
Oh wow, yeah, Colin Powell. Gosh, I didn't realize he spoke there. There's so many good. We've put who I interviewed Chuck D of Public Enemy. He came and did it a couple years ago. I think a month after you. So you're coming on February 6th. A month after
Correct.
you, Ruby Bridges, the civil rights icon, is going to
Yeah,
be there.
yeah.
Sarah Koenig of the podcast Serial is going to be there.
Oh,
There's a lot of cool guests coming up.
very familiar with similar lecture series. I was just
Right.
down at the Four Arts lecture series in Palm Beach. I've done, I do a fair number of lecturing.
Nice. Now, when you say lecturing, is it what exactly are we going to see if our folks turn out to this event? Or do you have like visuals behind you on
Oh
a
yeah.
screen? Or yeah,
I've been lucky to have had and still have a National Geographic cameraman standing at my side for the last, oh my God, 50 years.
he's
And
filming this very Zoom call. No, I'm just kidding.
yeah, and
I wish.
I've done 35 television specials with Geographic and
Yeah.
magazine. So I have a cornucopia of amazing imagery. So it's speaking to my image. I don't use a prepared speech. I like to wander around the stage and engage the audience. So it'll be a visual presentation with a talking kid like me.
I love it. I love it. So visual and then legendary words from yourself. One of the legends.
Past, present, and future. Rumors of my death are greatly exaggerated, as Mark Twain
Was that
said.
Twain? Yeah.
Yes,
You trying to get a Twain prize? They announced Conan O'Brien literally today was going to get it, but maybe you'll be next because you're
well,
close.
actually, I did get the same award. I live in Connecticut,
Okay.
so I was inducted into the Connecticut Hall of Fame with Mark Twain and Katharine
Nice.
Hepburn, and I'm in with good company there for sure.
I love it. Yeah. Wow. All right. So you said Katharine Hepburn and Mark Twain. That's great. So you were, well, here's how I'm a movie history buff. So you can take us through the history of your line of work and we'll weave it in past, present, future, like you said during this interview. So you were born in Wichita, Kansas in 42. So that would have been the year of the first Hepburn Tracy movie, Woman of the
That's
Year. There you
right.
go. There you go.
That's right. I was born, and where all oceanographers come from, evidently, from
Kansas. Yeah. 3 years after Dorothy went to
yes,
Oz. Yeah. In
yeah.
42.
My hero though was Captain Nemo. When I
Yeah.
saw the movie 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, I was 12 years old. I'm dyslexic, so I actually hadn't read the book.
Yeah.
When I saw the movie, I came home and your parents always ask you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I told them I wanted to be Captain Nemo.
So
But they
you
didn't
wanted to
laugh.
be
They didn't laugh.
no. Well, Captain Nemo is your name on the Zoom, your little
Oh,
title here.
don't give that out too much. I get in this.
So your lifelong fan is my point. And while we're talking about it, so yes, obviously based on the Jules Verne novel, the 54
Right.
film adaptations, but you instead of wanting to be the Kirk Douglas Ned Land, you wanted to be James Mason. You wanted to be Nemo.
Yeah, absolutely. When you remember in the scene, they thought the Nautilus was some monster, and a British warship was out trying to find it and kill it.
Yeah.
And Kirk Douglas, who was Ned, was the harpoonist that was supposed to kill it. And
Yeah.
that scene at the evening, the sun is setting, and this monster glowing eyes come ramming towards the warship and
Yeah.
sink it, and then they flash to the next morning, and Kirk Douglas is treading water in the middle of nowhere, and he sees that object on the horizon. He swims over, and it's the Nautilus, and he goes aboard, but no one's there. And he goes down into the captain's cabin, and they had this amazing window that opened like the iris of a lens, and he pushes the button and it opens up, and he sees Captain Nemo and his team walking on the bottom of the ocean. And
Wow.
that really impacted me, because after being born in Kansas, I was only in Kansas for less than a year. I woke
Yeah.
up in California, and I lived on the ocean, and it was my playpen. But I always saw the ocean as a flat, featureless horizon.
Yeah.
and they were walking on the ocean. And that made me a marine geologist. That's why I went on to get a PhD in marine geology, because I just found it fascinating that the greatest mountain ranges are beneath the sea, the deepest trenches, that
Yeah.
the landscape underwater is quite phenomenal.
Yeah.
And I've spent my life going boldly where no one has gone before on planet Earth with my ship. And guess what the name of my ship is?
What is it?
The Nautilus.
Of course, it all comes back to
If
that,
you
doesn't it?
go to nautiluslive.org, we just finished our 2024 field season. We're in the Philippines getting ready for next year when I'll be going back out to sea on my ship. So I literally lived my dream and never left middle school.
I love it. Well, thank you, because I was that's where I was going to ask you next, but you sort of teased it a little bit about your schooling and your training. So you're saying you're born in Kansas but grew up in California, admiring the ocean there. So you get what you were a double major in chemistry and geology, right, at University of California, Santa Barbara.
Double
Um,
major, double minor. Yeah, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew I wanted to commit my life to the ocean, but oceanography is more of an adjective. It's like people that study outer space being spaceologists,
uh,
and people on land, oceanography is a general field. So there's lots of disciplines. There's biology, geology. So since I didn't know, I took everything and
right.
and finally focused in on earth sciences. And I was lucky to be a PhD student when the big revolution took place in the earth sciences called plate tectonics, when we finally figured out how the earth works. So that's my career, has been trying to
Wow.
understand this creature on which we live.
So that PhD in plate tectonics was happening all around the time during your PhD is in marine geology at USC, and I guess you had gotten a master's in
Well,
geophysics
actually, I
Hawaii
was at
before then.
USC. Yeah, I was at
Yeah.
USC. I when I was UC Santa Barbara, remember in 1960 at land grant universities, if you all men were required to be in ROTC
Hmm.
their freshman and sophomore year, and so that was automatic. If you're going to go to Cal campus as well as other state universities, and so the beautiful campus right on the oceans, but all they offered was Army ROTC.
Hmm.
So I volunteered to be a combat infantry officer during Vietnam. I went off to Fort Lewis in Tumwater, Washington, at the base of Mount Rainier, and then was commissioned as an Army infantry officer and then into Army intelligence. But then I went to graduate school at USC. And in graduate school, I applied for an inter-service transfer because I thought this is crazy. I'm getting a PhD in oceanography and I'm in the Army.
Yeah.
And then one night, knock on the door, and I opened the door and there was a naval officer standing there, and it had my orders. And he said, "You are now an Army officer, a naval officer.
Yeah.
You need to get in your little VW and drive across the United States and report to a place called the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution." And I had never heard of that
Where
place.
was that? Where was that?
Where the heck is that? Get out my Rand McNally. And we started looking, and it's on Cape Cod, and it's a
Okay.
very famous oceanographic institution. But I had been grown up in the shadow of Scripps in La Jolla. They never told me there was another one. So
So
that's
you didn't finish your PhD. Yeah, well, at that point, you drove
at
across
that point,
and then
I
you
had my
later finished
orders.
it
Yeah,
at Rhode Island.
I
Yeah.
had very little choice. So then I went off and did my active duty, and I
Yeah.
was assigned to their deep diving submarine,
Awesome.
Alvin. And at the same time, I was also working in a Navy submarine that was a very, very special submarine called the NR-1. And if you look it up, it's the deepest diving nuclear submarine ever built, but it's only 150 feet long. And guess what? It has windows and it can roll along. It was the modern day version of the Nautilus.
NR1. That's take that. Not the
NR1.
Red October's got nothing on that.
Not this puppy can lives on the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah.
It's literally the modern version of the Nautilus. And is it
Wow.
so ironic?
So
You
cool.
plan your life and then a random thing happens and it opens a door that you
Yeah.
go through and changes your life. So yeah,
So
I've worked in that deep diving submarine for over 30 years, doing all sorts of missions for
yeah.
the Navy. Then when I got out of active duty, I went back, finished my PhD, actually at the University of Rhode Island Graduate School of Oceanography.
Yeah.
And then in 1975, went and became a scientist at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution.
I
So,
love it. Thank you. You're giving us gold from your studies to your military service and the submarine at the bottom of the foot. I love it. So, I do want we have to get into some of the famous shipwrecks you discovered because that is one of your huge claims to fame you're going to get to talk about at the Weinberg. But before I get into we'll list some of the good big ones. But even before that, tell me some of the natural discoveries, some of
oh,
Earth's wonders, the deep sea
so
vents and the Black
I
Sea
got to tell you,
deluge.
so I got to tell you a story. When I wrote my autobiography, Into the Deep,
Yes.
at my in the prologue, I was my mother. And so here's when I found the Titanic.
Yeah.
I went and Geographic had me going on all the talk shows and everything.
Yeah.
And I came home and the phone rang. And I'm the first of 13 generations of my family in America to go to college. And so my mom from Kansas called me and said, we saw you on all the talk shows and get ready. It's too bad you found that rusty old boat. And I went, I got, I've been on every talk show in the United States. And
Yeah.
my mom says, too bad. And
Not
I
impressed, mom.
not impressed, She
Yeah.
says, you are a great scientist. You and your brother, my brother, older brother, also got a PhD in physics.
Yeah.
And you've done major discoveries. And my single most important discovery was not the Titanic. It was the discovery of a whole new life system in the ocean that we knew nothing about. We were taught in our biology book that all life on the planet was due to photosynthesis, that we were just in the right spot, the Goldilocks zone between Venus and Mars, and that we had this amazing place. We weren't too close to the sun nor too far away.
Yeah.
We were dependent upon life from photosynthesis, that the sun gave off these great photons, these bundles of energy that sped through the outer space, came in and were captured by the chlorophyll of plants, and that all life on our planet was due to photosynthesis.
So you needed the sun in the old theory.
Yeah, in the old theory. So I'm down in total darkness.
Yeah.
9,000 feet down, exploring mountain ranges where there's active volcanoes. And I turn the corner, and there are these giant tube worms, 13 feet tall, like big thickets. We called it the rose garden. And they were sticking out their lung, and they were ingesting poisonous gases in solution from the volcanic vents and fixing carbon through a process we call chemosynthesis. And when we grabbed these, we also had giant clams, they're about a foot across. But when you open them up, they had human-like blood.
Really?
Yeah, it was gory. When you open them up, they're like blood's pouring out, bright red blood.
Wow.
And when you cut them open, they had no internal organs. They had
Really?
they were a clam. They looked like a clam, but their body cavity was completely occupied by another creature called an extremophile.
Oh my gosh.
A primitive creature that had figured out over eons of time how to duplicate photosynthesis in the dark through this process of chemosynthesis, which opened up the whole opportunity to find life elsewhere in the universe. And that's why we just fired a probe off to the moon of Jupiter, Europa, because Europa has an ocean bigger than ours. It has active volcanoes. And we think when we get there in 4 years, they think that's how long it takes to get there.
Wow.
They will find they will find chemosynthetic life. So
and that is why you say that, beyond the Titanic and all this other stuff, that is why you say that is your biggest discovery, because that changes, our understanding of and I love that you relate it to space. We've had Buzz Aldrin on this show, and for a while, I thought he was the biggest explorer we interviewed. Now, it might be you, sir.
Well, it turns out, see, that this is we knew life began in the ocean. but
Yeah.
we didn't know where. And so this was the discovery of where life began, more than likely on our planet.
Wow.
Uh, amazing, amazing discovery. And that was a pretty good one. And then on another one, we
Yeah, pretty good one.
get
Understatement.
ready for so, but when we were doing the theory of plate tectonics,
Yeah.
it's based upon the concept. In fact, there's a new emerging theory called the concept of Gaia, Gaia, that Earth is in fact a creature living
Really?
symbiotically with all of the life forms. Now, I know it's hard to think of Earth as a creature, but imagine that you're not interviewing me, that you're interviewing a mayfly.
Okay.
And a mayfly, adult life is like 4 days.
Okay.
And the mayfly is standing on a giant sequoia tree in Northern California.
Okay.
And you interview the mayfly and you say, do you perceive the object on which you're standing as being alive?
Right.
Mayfly says, no, I've been here my whole life, 4 days, and the
Yeah.
tree hasn't done a doggone thing. Humans are like mayflies standing on a creature that was born into existence 4.5 billion years ago and has changed through its life form. And it's only a teenager. It still has billions of years to go. And we cannot perceive that it's alive. But what we discovered was the skin of the earth is moving. That
Whoa.
the earth is made up of pieces called plates.
Yeah.
There's about 13 of them, and they're moving in a dance, a choreography. That when you cut your skin, blood comes out and it coagulates and forms new tissue.
Yeah.
When the plates are pulled apart, like cutting open the Earth's skin, it bleeds its molten blood,
Yeah.
which is
Eruption. Yeah.
eruptions, which coagulates and forms new tissue and then moves away from its site of genesis. So I'm going to talk about how the Earth is, in fact, a creature,
A living creature.
a living creature. And here's the problem: there's only one creature off the reservation right now, us.
Whoa.
And unless we get back on track and cut a deal with the earth and get back where we're living in a valued way, Earth will get rid of us. You thought COVID was bad? Get ready for the next bowling ball. You thought the fires in California, the,
Yeah.
the hurricanes sweeping across
Yeah.
the Gulf of
Yeah.
Mexico, and Earth is really angry with us.
What is that theory? I might, is it like the fleas on the dog theory or whatever? The dog will shake us off if we're not careful. Mother Earth is gonna get us. We need to get our act together and take care of the planet, this living creature, or it's gonna get rid of us. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. We
Yeah.
need to we need to respect the fact that we are now viewed as a threat
Wow. And for
by Earth.
many millennium, we weren't advanced enough to be
We
a
were
threat,
not.
but we've become a threat now.
We have now become a threat not only to Earth, but to all other life.
Wow. That is wild.
So we can't win that battle. So when we went out and proved this theory, that was a pretty good day at the office. And that was
Man.
so when we did Project Famous, it was called. I'll talk about it, 1975.
Yeah.
We threw away the geology book. When we discovered hydrothermal vents, we threw away the biology book. And then that was followed when I was driving along this mountain range, I'll talk about this
Yeah.
vast mountain range. It covers 23% of the Earth's total surface is a single mountain range. And we didn't send humans. I was one of the first humans to enter this mountain range. We didn't go there till after the astronauts went to the moon. Think
Wow.
about it. Buzz Aldrin went to the moon
Neil,
before
yeah.
humans went to the largest mountain range on our own planet.
That's wild to me.
So I'm driving along this mountain range. There's all sorts of volcanic activity going on. And I turn the corner and I see these giant chimneys, 20, 30 feet tall chimneys. And they're belching out this black substance. We called them black smokers, but they weren't. What they were doing was, it turns out that when the plates are moving apart, they form deep cracks in the earth. And it's 70,000 kilometer long crack. And
Wow.
that lets the ocean go inside the earth and out. So the entire volume of the oceans is going in the planet. We didn't know when I took my chemistry class.
Yeah.
We couldn't explain why the ocean had the chemistry it had. We thought, well, obviously it's the rivers. They're bringing in all this stuff. But the chemistry of the rivers is totally different than the chemistry of the oceans. And we weren't able to balance all the equations till I discovered these black smokers and realized that the entire volume of the earth is going inside the planet and out every 100,000 years. Think about it. There's an internal circulation we knew nothing about.
Wow.
And when it
Everyone's in the old way of thinking, everyone's thinking of this surface level rivers, blah, 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 flowing in, but you're the one under the bottom of the ocean floor realizing that it's circulating within itself. And that's
correct.
what makes the chemistry of the ocean
And
above.
when you run those numbers, you balance all the equations. But these black smoke that's coming out is not. When we first saw one, I asked the pilot, let's go up. I want to see how hot it is. And he says, I don't. And I said, I know, but I do. So we
Wow.
went up and we took a thermometer and we stuck it in the chimney and it melted my thermometer.
Wow.
And we realized it was coming out hot enough to melt lead. And my window was like 3 feet away. And I went,
You're like, I gotta get out of here.
but what we discovered was that black smoke is minerals, rare earths in particular. So we made a vast discovery of the ocean is full of minerals. And so this is now open Pandora's box to the whole conflict now. Do we mine the ocean floor? So we threw away the chemistry book. So
Yeah.
yeah, and then I went off and threw away the archaeology book. I spend my whole time throwing away books. I guess it's because I'm dyslexic, I
Just
don't know.
never throw away Jules Verne. Keep that book.
No. So I have been fortunate to be an explorer, and all my life, I'm 83 in June,
Bravo.
and I've just started because I just started a major new program I want to talk about.
I want to talk, and I do want to get to some of the shipwreck discoveries, by the way, but go ahead. Keep going. Keep going your program here. This is
Well, we
fascinating.
all know the story of Lewis and Clark, right?
Of course.
We know that Napoleon made the decision because of riots in Haiti, which is fascinating, to sell off his holdings and not colonize North America. So he came to Jefferson and said, have I got a deal for you? I want to sell you the Louisiana Purchase for $21 million, which would double the size of America.
Yeah.
And Jefferson convinced Congress to do it. And he then commissioned Captain Meriwether Lewis and Lieutenant Clark to go and find out what he bought.
Yeah. He bought it
And
before you knew it was there.
no, well, he knew a little
Yeah.
from Native Americans and
Yeah. Yeah.
trappers and all of that. But historians will tell you that the acquisition of the Louisiana Purchase made America the great nation it is, because before that it was very primitive. You had slavery in the South, you had raw materials in the North, and not so great farmlands in the middle. But when we were able to do that Western migration, we changed the entire thing. So now flash forward to President Reagan picking up a pen. And for the price of pen, he wrote, we now own all land underneath the sea 200 miles from our shore. It's called the exclusive economic zone. Guess what? It's equal to 5.5 Louisiana purchases.
That's how far down and
That's how far out. It's 52% of America
wow.
is beneath the sea, and we have better maps of Mars than half of our own country. So I put together a team of explorers who have been commissioned by our country to conduct the second Lewis and Clark expedition. But now, since my team, now Lewis and Clark calls his team the Corps of Discovery.
Yeah.
Mine is the Corps of Exploration. Since 62% of my team are women, we call it the Lewis and Clark expedition.
Ah, I see.
So if you go to nautiluslive.org, you'll find my ship resting. We've been at sea all, we just got home, and we'll be going back out in April. And so I've got a job to do.
Nautilus
What
Live.
we own.
I love it. Wow, that's fascinating. I did
All
not
right,
even
now
know
we
that.
can talk about shipwrecks. Now,
Of course. Well, after that, I might have to move the shipwrecks to the beginning and end on that. That sounds amazing.
well
But we'll
now,
see. But
now, do you know that my expedition to find the Titanic was a cover for a top secret military operation?
I think I'd forgotten that, but that sounds familiar. I think I'd heard that. So you found it on September 1st, 1985, all right?
Yeah,
So,
but
but
that
what
was
was
the
the
cover.
secret operation that was going on behind the scenes?
Well, we know where the Titanic sank. It was on its way from actually left Ireland Cove and was coming across to New York City, and south of the Grand Banks, it hit an iceberg and sank. On either side of the Titanic are two nuclear submarines, the only two nuclear submarines we lost during the Cold War, the Thresher and the Scorpion. And in the case of the Scorpion, it was carrying nuclear weapons.
Wow.
And we don't like leaving them around. And so most people didn't know that I was a naval intelligence officer and I did missions for the Navy. And one of the missions, my commanding officer was Vice Admiral Ron Thunman, Oppo 2, Deputy Chief of Naval Operations for Submarine Warfare. And I was building a whole new technology instead of sending my body to the ocean. The problem with going down in a submarine, I spent 20 some years in them, even the deepest one. When I dove, for example, to the deepest volcanoes in the world active are in the Cayman Trough at 20,000 feet down.
Hmm.
So when I made that dive to 20,000 feet, it took me 6 hours in the morning to get to work and 6 hours to get home at night. I spent most of my time going up and down,
Right,
very little time left to actually explore.
right.
So I designed a system back in 1980, 81 called the Argo Jason system. And the whole idea was to not send my body, but send my spirit
Mm.
to be able to have an out of body experience. Look at what we're doing right now. We're zooming. Well,
Yeah.
I've been zooming for decades.
Right. You were zooming down underwater. Wow.
So
Okay.
I have my ship. If you go aboard the Nautilus, you
Yeah.
have a complete command center. And we put down our robots and we don't bring them up.
I
And we
got that.
stay down 24 hours a day.
Okay.
And that makes it possible for me to make amazing discoveries. And the new robots we're now building ships that don't have humans on them.
Mm.
We're
Just,
we're now building drones that are like swarming bees that can go down and
yeah.
we're doing it also in the air.
Yeah.
But the war of tomorrow or the war of today, look at
It's
Iraq,
here. Yeah.
look
It's
at
happening. Yeah.
Ukraine. It's a war of robots.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
we're now building these teleoperated robots. I can do everything. I have a command center in my office
Yeah.
uh, downstairs that lets me go on the ship without leaving my house. The
That,
future is electronic travel. You're going
absolutely.
to have the same thing I have, and you're going to spend Saturday in the Serengeti in a Jeep with a person in front of you that's in the Serengeti, and you're in the Jeep through telepresence. Because right now, if you weren't looking at this screen on Zoom, you can't see your body.
Right. Right.
And so the robot becomes what we call an end effector. It's able to transport you at the like that
Yeah.
speed of light. And I'm doing it. It took a while to adjust to it because it's it's crazy to be in Connecticut and then be under the ocean and then get up and go to the bathroom and you're back in Connecticut and you're moving yourself around a lot.
Where am I going to the bathroom again?
Right. Where am I right
Where
now?
am I?
And so, but the Titanic was the first time I was testing this technology,
Wow.
and they wanted me to go and completely map the Thresher and the Scorpion and ascertain the nuclear weapons status, the status of the reactor. But they didn't want the Russians to put a satellite on me and tag me. Then I would be leading them to
Right.
the nuclear weapons. So I told my commanding officer, we need a cover and let's do the Titanic. And
Brilliant.
and it worked.
They went for it. Well, that's genius. So this is an 85. Paint us a picture really quick with your words. So because now we're gonna detach from our bodies even more in the idea of theater of the mind if they're listening to a podcast. So paint a picture with your words about when you found the little bits of Titanic debris and then the
Well, here's the
boiler
point.
and then,
See, I was not supposed to find the Titanic.
sure, you're looking for the subs.
I had cut a deal with the French that I worked with on Project Famous. They had a new sonar, and that's how you find things in the dark with sonar.
Yeah.
Their job was to find it, and I was going to film it. But I knew I only had a few days. They didn't find it. And I went, well, I got a camera on a string.
Yeah.
How the hell am I going to find a Titanic in the dark? But when I was mapping the Scorpion for my commanding officer, he said I wanted 100% total coverage. And in mapping, I discovered that as it imploded and fell to the bottom, the currents made a long, long trail of debris. And I went, didn't the Titanic do the same thing?
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't space my lines like mowing the lawn. I did quick lines a mile apart and got it on the ninth line and walked in.
Wow.
But what
What?
was really amazing about the Titanic, when I went back the next year and we sent a robot down inside, and we saw the chandelier hanging from the ceiling. We could read crew use only. It was in amazing condition inside.
As Gordon Lightfoot said of Edmund Fitzgerald, you were in the rooms of her ice water mansion.
Yes. And so the point was, if you go online and talk and ask how many shipwrecks have been lost, it's 4 million. And these are capsules of human history. So I went on a 20-year binge. I found the Bismarck, I found the Yorktown, I found President Kennedy's PT 109,
The
and I went
Lusitania.
on.
Well,
And
you
then I
didn't
went
find it, but
on
you
to look
investigated
for
the Lusitania.
ancient shipwrecks. I found over 55 ancient shipwrecks dating back to the Iron Age, some in the Black Sea in perfect condition. And so the deep sea is the largest museum on Earth. It has more history in it than all the museums of the world combined. And we are just beginning to find those lost chapters of human history. And with this new technology, we will be discovering them one after another, after another, after another.
I love it, man. It's not only have you changed science and human discovery, like we've discussed with all these natural discoveries, but even these things that your mom wasn't really impressed with, rusty ships, even those have changed. You've inspired pop culture. I mean, James Cameron's whole career. I mean, he's become a
Yeah.
huge underwater explorer. But
Yeah.
not only with your Titanic, but I guess the same year he does The Abyss down in '89
Well,
was
and
when
then
you were finding the Bismarck.
I did a TV series with Steven Spielberg called Sequest DSV with
Yeah.
Roy Scheider, and he had me design this futuristic submarine called Sequest. And so, yes, I'm
Was that
trying.
Roy Scheider? Did he tell you need a bigger boat, or was Sequest big enough? Or was that?
Sequest was very large boat. But anyway, what was really interesting when I came home from finding the Titanic, the next 2 days, I received 16,000 letters from children,
Wow.
and they all said the same thing. Remember, this was 1985, and you had R2D2 and
Yeah.
CP30 and Star Wars and all of that, but
Right.
they were fake robots. And kids fixated on Jason Jr., the little robot that went inside Titanic,
Yeah.
and realized that robots are of the future. And so what they said is, what do I have to do what you do? And I said, well, you better study hard. I quadruple majored. So study hard. And then they said, the next time you go, can I go with you? And I went, why not? So I created a program called the Jason Project. This
And
is
you're talking to Jason now too. This is
yeah.
not different project.
This is pre-internet, and I cut a deal with Ted Turner, National Geographic, and EDS, and we instrumented 20 museums and science centers all over the United States and Canada and Europe, and we took kids on our expeditions. We stopped every year and did an expedition for kids. My Nautilus now does it 24 hours a day. So
Wow.
my legacy isn't so much my discoveries. It's the fact that I've had millions and millions of kids inspired by what I do, so they'll study a little harder in school. So my
Wow.
legacy is I like I said, I'm the first of 13 generations to go to college, and my grandmother from Kansas had sayings, and she said one of the, and I wrote them all down there. I'm going to do a book on my grandma done told me,
Good.
uh, and one of the sayings was, "Great is the person who plants a tree, knowing they will never sit in its shade."
Wow.
And that's my legacy. I've been planting trees and they're still planting them, and I will be long gone when they bear their fruit.
And that we're all just mayflies on those trees, not
That's right.
realizing this is
Exactly.
a living creature.
Oh, yeah, it's been a great gig, and I'm still gigging.
Absolutely. Well, this Zoom, I don't know if you can see, it's going to kick me off in 2 minutes. So let's wrap it up. But that is the perfect place to leave it. And maybe these future generations that you're inspiring, maybe some will come out to the Weinberg Center in Frederick, Maryland on February 6th and hear you talk. I guess I know we only have literally 2 minutes, but real quick, I wanted to get your thoughts on, we were talking about that Titanic, and I thought about that tragedy in 2023, the Titan
Yeah.
submersible that imploded. What was it? The Ocean Gate.
That's sad
Yeah,
because
I mean,
they broke the rules.
yeah, I wanted to ask you what went wrong.
They dove in an uncertified pressure hull.
Yeah,
You don't do that.
yeah.
And it was the first fatality in the deep sea. Think about it. This
First,
is the first time we've been in deep diving submersibles since 1960.
yeah.
So we've been at this a long time, and knock on wood, have not lost a person in the deep sea till then because they broke the rules.
You got to let the experts do it, the actual scientists like yourself, and follow
Don't
the
cut,
actual rules.
don't
Yeah.
cut corners. I am so excited to come because I can't wait to look out in that audience and see those future explorers. All children are born explorers. They have a little pilot light, and my job is to pour fuel on that pilot light and not extinguish their curiosity. And my favorite group are middle school kids. So I think of myself as a middle school kid that never grew up.
Awesome. The future Captain Nemo's. Oh, wait. Hey, February 6th at the Weinberg. It's going to kick me off. So it was an honor talking with you. You are a legend. Thanks for all you've done for humanity, and we'll continue to do it.
Roger that. Hope you're there.
Over and out, Captain.